Well, let's speak to one of the attendees who was there. Rajiv Agarwal, founder and fund manager at DoorDarshi India Fund, is with us. Rajiv, good morning from here. Appreciate you joining us, and thanks very much. You were there. You're the one who took that question about India. We
Yes,
just
I did.
played out sound bites of that answer for our viewers. What did you take away from, listening to the man live there in that arena?
Yeah, it's wonderful, Prashant, actually, to get an opportunity to ask Warren Buffett that question. I think the key takeaway for me was that he definitely sounded a lot more positive when that question for India came up. I think it is quite obvious that he does not have as much expertise on Indian equities or Indian opportunities. But I think my key takeaway is that he's very interested in looking at that opportunity, and he wants his folks who will take over from him to really look at that market. And that is what my key takeaway is.
Okay. Rajiv, hi. I mean, blessed to be a part of that, that meeting, that talk, etc., right? Especially, I mean, it was so endearing to see him speak so fondly about Charlie Munger now that he's not around. And of course, all of that would have made it a lot more special, I'm sure. But what was the overall takeaway from the talk? I mean, from the general meeting itself? What are the big trends that, our viewers should perhaps take away from that?
Yeah, I think quite a few things. So one is that we feel they were pretty obvious. They were pretty confident that Berkshire is a store of value. One can continue to invest in that company and be very comfortable that over the long term, that value will not only be preserved, will continue to grow. I think the bench strength that they have, which they talked about continuously, because Buffett is now starting to feel that maybe his mortality also is catching up, and especially with his partner being gone, he was quite reflecting the fact that it might also be closer to the end of the road for him. He has mentioned it multiple times, and so he highlighted the fact that the bench strength of Berkshire is really good, and people should not worry about it. And I think really in this meeting we saw Greg and Ajit answer a lot more of the questions, which was great, because as a shareholder we want to hear from the people who will be running the company. And so I thought that was quite helpful. I think they have very strong businesses in so many different aspects. And so that will also continue to be a big fuel for Berkshire. And lastly, cash. As we heard, more than $180 billion of cash. So I think that will allow them to jump onto the opportunities as they come up. So I think overall, pretty strong performance by Berkshire in 23, but even in Q1. And I think they feel pretty good about that.
All right, Rajiv, hi. Welcome to the show. Thanks a lot for joining in. This is Nigel on this side. After seeing your question trend over the weekend, good to have you on Monday morning, talking to us. But our audiences wants to know what's your view on the India investments. I believe that you run an India dedicated fund. So if you could tell us your top ideas out there, what's the theme you like? Financials is something I think in the past you've spoken about. IDFC, I think IFL Finance, they were stocks that you liked in the past. So the top sector you're looking at, and give us a couple of those stocks that you've invested here in the Indian markets.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Nigel, for that. I think you have done significant research on what I have mentioned in the past, so that's great. So, no, I think Indian equities continue to be quite interesting. We feel that Indian equities have a long runway, and I think financials in general have not really gone up. I was listening to your telecast earlier, and some of the financials were beaten up today. But in general, I think financials can do quite well because in India, the credit opportunity is huge, and there has been a credit deficit in the past. So I think some of the opportunities, in fact, recently I presented on Manappuram Finance at Investing Summit, Asian Investing Summit, hosted by MOI Global. We believe that NBFCs actually they are going to the tier 3, tier 4 towns and really catching the opportunity as the bottom of the pyramid is able to participate in the growth that we are seeing in India. So I think Manappuram Finance is pretty interesting. Apple Finance has been hurt. And by the way, all the stocks that I'm talking about are not recommendations because as a FPI, we don't want to recommend anything, but these are things that we find interesting. But Apple Finance has been beaten up badly because of the gold loan disbursement that they could not do. But I think that is an interesting opportunity if people can think a few years out. And everything that we look at, we always think a few years out. We don't know what will happen next quarter or even next year, but we are thinking a few years out, and we think these opportunities, Apple Finance, Manappuram Finance, even Ujjivan which is now actually doing a reverse merger, and Ujjivan Finance, and now the Ujjivan Small Finance Bank are some of the opportunities that we feel pretty good about.
Okay, thanks a lot for joining in, Rajiv. Appreciate your time this morning, and hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to you again. Well, that's the word coming in, not just on the markets, but also on that big event that took place at the Berkshire Hathaway general meeting. But